Another draft in the books as we bring in the panel brought to you by Sport Chek. Tom Gazzola with Bob Stauffer and Jack Michaels from the Oilers Radio Network. Guys, the Oilers had 7 picks today. They go with 4 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goaltender. All of them massive, as opposed to Kyler Yamamoto that we saw the other day. And the focus on an Edmonton kid, the goaltender, Stuart Skinner. Bob, a guy that you know well.
I have seen him play a bunch of times. Actually dated all the way back to the lockout year, Jack, in 2012, 2013. That was the year that Tyler Benson and Sam Steele went 1-2 in the WHL Bantam draft. And, you know, Skinner was the best goaltender in that draft year. He ended up going in the first round of that draft to Lethbridge as well. And, you know, he's a pretty special guy, a big guy from the Eli Wilson school, we found out, which is interesting to me a little bit because there's been a lot of guys sort of from that OR Sports Lyle Mass school that's connected through Dustin Schwartz. But I mean, the Oilers, I think I saw him play at least 3 times with Lethbridge as well. He's a big goaltender. He's athletic. He's going to put the work in. And a 3rd-round pick for goalie. And we thought this might happen. You know, we looked at a couple different guys, Michael DiPietro as well. Ended up going, I think, in the 2nd round. But it makes sense that the Oilers took a swing there because it's an area every organization needs, and an area that the Oilers, I think, were a little bit light.
Jack, they traded up to get him. What does that say about the want for him?
Well, I think it says a couple things. Number one, there was probably some recon that indicated you might lose him. Bob Green seemed to suggest that they were a little surprised that he was still going to be sitting there and go ahead and move up and get the guy. They've had heartbreak when it comes to waiting on goaltenders before at previous incarnations of NHL drafts, so why not be sure, go ahead, step up the guy you wanted all along. And, you know, it's interesting, Skinner had some, you know, pretty funny comments to talk about Kyler Yamamoto. You mentioned him in the same breath, and obviously those two know one another and, you know, friendly rivals in the Western Hockey League. But you're absolutely right. Today was predicated about size. You know, one night after drafting the smallest player in the history of the NHL first round, the Oilers draft everyone across the board at least 6'2", and a couple of prospects on the back end of the U.S. program, including Skylar Brindamore, who 11 years ago, at the age of 6, was sitting in his dad's arms on ice in Raleigh after Game 7 of that Stanley Cup final between the Canes and the Oilers.
I was on the ice after Game 7. Thanks for reminding me of that. But no, I mean, that's an interesting.
Did you know Skyler would be drafted today?
No,
not at that point. You didn't see
no, but
he's got an interesting path to go on.
Yeah,
here
because
too.
He's going to go play in the BC Junior League, and he might be 2 years removed before he joins an NCAA program. You know, I'd like to tell you that I've got a lot of knowledge on the 4 forwards they took. That would be complete BS. I don't. I mean, who does? But the scouts do. That's their job. But Peter mentioned yesterday, Peter Chiarelli, about addressing needs. And goaltending, I think, was a priority. You mentioned Carter Hart was the guy that they wanted. And they ended up getting Dylan Wells in the 5th round, who's an absolute steal, as it's turned out.
Had a great year.
And got invited to Canada's World Junior Camp. So they need to hit on a couple of these forwards a little bit later. That, you know, you're talking, once you get past round 2, you're talking anywhere from, you know, 7 to 20% with some of these rounds. If they can just have 1 or 2 of these guys, they got a chance, but they got time with a couple of the picks.
And go back even a few more years. Remember, Montreal traded up to get the goalie. Yeah, I mean that
didn't get Jari either.
Right. I mean there's been some recent history. So I guess the lesson is, you know what? Don't worry about, you know, an extra 5th round pick that you got in a deal a couple years back. Go ahead and secure what you need to. And another guy out of the U.S. program drafted late, Philip Kemp, huge defenseman, close to 6'5", 200 pounds already, just turned 18. He's going to go to Yale in the fall, so we know he's sharp.
He says he loves blocking shots and playing defensive D. Like, and you don't
go out
hear
on the
that
street and try to find as many kids.
Everyone wants to be a 2-way defenseman. This guy's like, no, I like playing defense. Anything else, Bob? Are we good?
Well, I just go back to Yamamoto. I mean, that was the Oilers guy. We knew this weeks ago that they had an affinity for him.
His spirit has kind of revved up this draft a little bit. I think all 3 of us came away with a real positive first impression.
You're going to have a chance to see these guys at the orientation camp, which is going to make things interesting. You know, for Jack, for me, I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that Yamamoto might get 4 or 5 games in the preseason. Don't tell him he's not on the team.
And you know what? This has been a big weekend. I mean, Jordan Eberle traded for Ryan Strome. This has been an extremely busy weekend in Chicago, considering going into the draft, the Oilers had 1 pick out of 81, but there's a lot of storylines coming out of Chicago, just whetting our appetites for what's to come. Before we know it, 3 months from now, we're going to be ratcheting it up.
Vacation first. I mean,
well, I will say this: we do have the upcoming free agency period. I think Edmonton's going to be quiet. The Oilers have done a lot of their work, and now the focus shifts back to the #1 priority in the offseason, which, of course, is getting Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl locked up long term. That's really, I can see some subtle additions to the Oilers lineup via free agency, but nothing significant. It's about getting the 2 big dogs lined up.
Which is part of the reason why the first event that transpired this weekend transpired, and that was Eberle for Strome, which, of course, created some cap space.
All right, boys, great stuff as always. Always a pleasure working with you guys.
You said it with a straight face, even.
See you in Penticton.
See you in Penticton. Oilers TV will be in Jasper. The Rookies Report July 1st, also free agency day. We've got you covered on Oilers TV, as always.